Good evening. I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome back to Hangar Flying. We've really been fortunate the past couple of sessions that we've had Keith Earley on. Keith's a very experienced military and corporate and FedEx, now FedEx captain pilot who's got some real lessons to share with us. And tonight I've asked him back to tell us a couple stories I think you'll appreciate. Keith, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Where do you want to start?
You're running the show, so.
How about Ketchikan?
Ketchikan. I spoke to you about Ketchikan because it brought up the example of the pressures that are put on pilots in all of the levels of aviation where you're paid to do a job. You can be placed under undue pressure by supervision to accomplish a job that in your own judgment is not a good call. But you are ultimately responsible and not your supervisor for the sequence of events. So one such event for me, I was ferrying an airplane from Tucson back to Fairbanks. It was an A-10, single-seat airplane. And the weather up and down the Alaska coast was pretty bad. It was horizontal rain, low ceilings, heavy rainfall, and this was from Ketchikan all the way up to Haines. And I was asked to get that airplane back in time to get on the next day's schedule, and having watched the weather all day long and not improving and knowing what the weather conditions were at Ketchikan and the alternates of Sitka and Juneau, I didn't think it was such a good idea. That was better to wait, but my supervisor asked me to press forward and to bring the airplane home, so I made that flight. When I got to overhead Ketchikan, Anchorage Center at 18,000 feet as I'm descending down said radar service terminated, which meant I was on my own for navigation and flying this approach. And the winds were very strong from the ocean, from the west. And what I now pay very careful attention to was on the approach plate it said, "Caution, strong crosswinds may lead to severe turbulence." And so I flew the penetration down and intercepted a localizer final. And on that final approach, the A-10 was bucking so hard from that turbulence that my eyeballs literally would not cage inside my skull. Every time it would hit that strong turbulence, the airplane would go bang, bang, bang. And each time it did, my eyeballs did the same thing, and I could not retain focus on the instruments. I was looking at focused instruments in between turbulence bucks. I flew the approach down, of course with no autopilot, down to a 200-foot minimum, and at the moment that I was ready to go around, I saw the threshold lights for the runway Ketchikan, which are right on the water. I also saw you know, the surging water, the caps, the winds blowing the caps on the water. Landed, got off the runway, put the airplane to bed in a pouring rain, left the island on ferry, got the last ferry to the mainland, and got the last room in the hotel, soaking wet. And when I got back to Fairbanks, I had a few words with my supervisor about putting me in that compromising situation.
Wow, there but for the grace of God. Thank you for sharing that. One more, we got about 2 minutes left. I want you to tell the story about, you mentioned complacency last time.
Yes.
And you had an experience with complacency, didn't you?
Well, you know, you do the same flight over and over and over again, and you think it's just another flight. Well, I was with F-5 Squadron. We were in Cold Lake, Canada, supporting the Fighter Weapons School for the Canadian F-18 Squadron there. And on this particular day, I was leading a two-ship and was going to meet another two-ship of F-18s, and we're going to do air combat maneuvering, 2 against 2. Well, when we got up to the airspace, we found that the clouds were layered all the way up to 30,000 feet, which is pretty high for this sort of engagement. So in the air, we briefed up we would modify the mission. It was going to be intercepts only, no full-up maneuvering. And so we set up at our respective points, and we're going towards each other, both of us near Mach, and I spotted the F-18s low and to the left, and I called sight, and I lit the afterburners and turned hard into them for the intercept, and both of my engines, just exactly as the flight manual says they will, flamed out at 35,000 feet. And so now I am a fighter with, and I'm a glider at the same time. I'm gliding down from 35,000 feet down. I rocked the wings to have my wingman join in on me. He got in just in time before we hit the weather, and I'm flying off of a battery-operated standby attitude indicator about that big between my knees, and a standby altimeter, waiting to get down to 25,000 feet so I can push the start button, because the engines won't start above 25,000 feet. So I had from 30,000 feet down to 25,000 feet to think about how complacent I was about that little restriction in the flight manual about using afterburners and heavy maneuvering at 35,000 feet. When I got back on the ground, the engines both lit as they should. Got back on the ground. I had a private meeting with my operations officer, which wasn't pleasant. It was not a pleasant conversation.
So I guess another way to say that, maybe your fangs got ahead of you on that.
I thought it was just another intercept. It turned out to be a training maneuver, or a training flight and fighter as a glider.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Thanks for being on the program. I've really enjoyed your stories and your inputs, so appreciate having you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed tonight's program and the other two sessions with Keith. Until next time, fly safe, and don't forget to renew your membership for 2016. That's the way we survive. Till then, fly safe.